Hi, very good morning, or should I say afternoon actually. It's Gene from maverickstar. How are you? What a beautiful afternoon we're having here in the UK at the moment. Sun is shining, not particularly over warm, probably around about 10 degrees, but blue sky, and that's a nice thing to see. Because for the last what seems a week we've had nothing but rain, and yesterday afternoon that's eased up a little and allowed me to get out the equipment and do some tests for you guys, and obviously produce the Earth's Alpha at a glance, where we look at various anomalies for you, including CO2, atmospheric oxygen, etc. So there's three things I want to talk about in this video, very briefly if I can. I don't want to keep you from your family on a Sunday. So first one is the Earth's Alpha at a glance. We'll have a look at the details of what we've collected. Secondly is having a look and focusing on what's going on briefly in Europe. And then thirdly, I just want to share some information with you guys with regards to national debts of just two countries, because I'm pretty sure that most of Europe's in the same boat, if not worse, than the United States and the United Kingdom and Canada and Australia. I think we're all in around about the same trouble, and there's some interesting figures there for you. So let's get on with the Earth's Alpha at a glance. So let's bring it down a little. Okay, so we've got the atmospheric CO2 measuring at 430 parts per million, atmospheric oxygen 20.38%. Then we got the latest magnetic pole position, which is 81 degrees 45 hours 27 minutes 47 seconds north by a longitude of 114 degrees 7 hours 52 minutes 50 seconds east. The background radiation count is 0.15 microsieverts. Volcanoes in eruption, slightly up from when we done the last measurement, which was on the 12th, I think, month, in December. So we're up around about 3 volcanoes more active than what was, a month or two ago. Largest earthquake in the last 24 hours. This was yesterday. I took the reading. That was 5.8 magnitude in the Philippines. We got muons per hour per square meter in in the UK at 562, muons per square meter in Canada at 580. Sunspot numbers are 7, the geomagnetic field's quiet, and the solar X-rays are normal, and of course our jet streams, as a result of a weakened magnetosphere, are still unstable. The magnetosphere strength is around about 50 microteslas, as you can see down there. So moving on just to something else very briefly again, which I think you'll find interesting. So okay, the topic, as you can see, is European farmers. The countries are up in outroar over the new legislation of what is taking place, and they are going crazy in Europe. Now, you remember Elon Musk saying that the European Union was just moments away from civil war. I think we're starting to see. I think he's right, and that guy must have a crystal ball to make predictions like this months before these things happen. But you can just do a quick Google search or YouTube search on European farmers protesting. You will find the majority of the countries within that union are in uproar over the latest policies. And they're saying no farmers, no food, no future. That's their primary, whatever you'd call it, anyhow. But you can just see Spain, Portugal, Poland, Germany, Italy, France, Paris has been blocked off. Unbelievable. I think we're looking at the early hours of the European Union being dismantled, because people have had clearly way too much of the policies that are, ridiculous. This is all over again. These CO2 policies, trying to cut it, blaming countries like the European countries, small countries, individual countries, and even countries like I said the other day. England, for God's sakes, 400 miles from top to bottom, less than 200 miles across, as the crow flies, as they say, and yet we are paying more than China in green taxes. China, by the way, has just put on the cards another opening of 600 plus coal-powered power stations. Is it any wonder why people can't see the common sense in what the European Union are trying to say? Well, it's not even common sense, is it? Let's face it. This is ludicrous policies. And of course, they're affecting people down on the ground. They're going to affect us, because if you think our food is not going to be affected by what is going on, they are setting fire to the asphalt on the motorways, digging up the roads, dumping, tons of manure and urine all over certain facilities. This is going to get clearly out of hand at some point, if it hasn't already, and rightfully so. I am fully behind these guys, but I just hope it's not going to be another Canadian trucker incident. But the EU's got to go. Absolutely has to go. We can't afford it. And what we're going to be talking about next just reiterates that. These organisations that are not elected, that are dictating to countries which are in effect, I'll say it, pissing off the residents of these countries to the point where they are taking their own time out and going to protest along with a load of other people, millions of other people, to stop it. They've done it for themselves. This was one move too many on the people, and this is what you get as a result of it. So let's watch this space. Let's see where this goes, because I just hope they don't give up. They hold it out, and they demand the end and the dismantlation of that unnecessary service that the European Union provide. The next one I want to see go down the same route as this is the United Nations. I want to see every one of those bureaucrats in the United Nations with no job, with no pensions, with nothing, because they have only taken, and the organisation after that, if we can do it, please, the Lord Almighty, let's get rid of the World Health Organisation, because it's useless. Failed to tell us about what was going on, told us that the pandemic was started by a bat in a cave that found its way, contaminating a wet market, and then, obviously then spreading around the world, when we know now clearly it came out of Wuhan. This was a virology department, and that virology department was in the business of building chemical warfare and biological warfare. So, and we know it was funded by the United States as well, so no wonder why they wanted to keep it quiet, because the trail led back to the US. The US was told they can't do gain of function virology experiments, so what did they do? They shipped it off to China, but carried on doing it regardless. And of course, everybody knows now. We all know now. And we've just had enough. That's why we're not listening to your mainstream media anymore. We won't listen to anything that is said on that TV anymore, or anybody's TV, because we know all they spread is misinformation and lies. Like I've been saying, everything they say, if you just spin it round 180 degrees, you get the truth. And they've tried to come out and target us with it. This is what a barefaced liar does. A barefaced liar, when you catch them, will accuse you of being a barefaced liar. That's exactly, it's like a kindergarten argument. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now the British media and the world's media have been caught with the pants down. They've lost the respect of the British public. We've had enough of them with their illegal activities, locking us down, imposing these measures. We've got to wear masks on aircraft. We've got to contain ourselves within our own houses for a certain amount of days after flying. But it's okay. It's absolutely okay. If you're on a plane and you need to have a drink or eat some food, you can take your mask off, because COVID won't affect you whilst you're doing that. This idiotic hypocrisy and policies that we've been put up with for a long time is, in my view, coming to an end. And you can hear this coming from a lot of other channels as well. You know, we can see it now. The back is broke. We have obviously reached equilibrium, and we're not going to take it no more. And the governments know this. If you listen to what they said at Davos, they said we have lost right now the initiative. We used to be the gatekeepers of information, and we no longer are. And it's true. And we've seen what they've tried to do by silencing real scientists, good people, honest, you know, that live up to what they said they was going to do. You know, we've seen good reporters lose their jobs as a result of reporting on real issues, and not the singing of the hymn sheets that was given to them to report on. You know, we all know that. It's all out in the open. And it's time for big changes. I do believe we are at the equilibrium point now, from what I can see. You know, we had the truckers' protests in Canada, okay? Justin Trudeau's used, emergency matters to get things under control in some way there, illegally. This is a guy that was complaining, let's face it, about somebody having, what's the name of that flag? A Confederate flag flying. I don't know how true that was, but that's what he said. There was a Confederate flag being flown, and for God's sakes, this is what we want. This is what these truckers was protesting and claiming to be, you know, decent people. Well, let me tell you something, Justin Trudeau's. You're the one that stood up and gave a standing ovation to a Nazi. I'm not surprised you've got upheaval in Canada as a result of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have further things come your way as a result of that, because the world is waking up. Your nation's people are waking up, and right now you might be ruling them with a steel rope, yeah, but they're going to find a way of getting through that, just as all the people that we're seeing right now in the European Union. Okay, I wanted to just the other thing I wanted to touch on for you guys is just some figures relating to the UK's debt and the United States debt. So the UK's debt is over 2 trillion. Paying 200, let's say they was able to pay 200 billion over 10 years. They'd pay this debt off. But then what would they cut in spending to do it? Well, I just, done a little bit of research on, what sort of things they spend the money on during every year. So our GDP is 2 trillion. Our debt is just over 2 trillion. The NHS costs 115 billion. If we was to cut the NHS, that would mean 15 years of no NHS. We could pay that debt off. If we didn't want to do that, we could cut the benefits, right, which amount to 700 billion a year. So we could pay the national debt off in 3 years if we didn't pay anyone benefits. That would lead, obviously, all these things would lead to big chaotic things, but I'm getting to the point. So what about if we just said, okay, we're not going to touch the NHS, we're not going to touch the benefits, but we're going to have to pay people's pensions, which is 200 billion a year. So it'd take 10 years to pay the debt off, but for the next 10 years, no one would have any pension. And of course, this is another thing that should be completely unacceptable. What my point is that we are insolvent. That means we can't pay our debt back because there's nothing we can touch that we spend as as they spend as a government that could be justifiably, a repayment that people would accept. So we're insolvent, and the only way to overcome insolvency is declare bankruptcy. Now, I want to just say this: we look around what's been going on in the UK just over the last few years. Birmingham has declared itself bankrupt, legally. Submitted all the right legal documents to do it and declared itself bankrupt. Now, we know that central government down in London and Westminster could have bailed out Birmingham, but they didn't want to because the people that Birmingham owe a lot of money to are the general public. and they lost the lawsuit, which really broke the back of Birmingham Council, which was in relationship to fair pay for women and men. And obviously Birmingham City Council was found guilty of not treating women equal to men, and as a result lost the legal lawsuit because they had paid women considerably more money than what they had to men, and they lost it. And this case cost billions. So obviously central government have said, look, we're not going to pay for this. What you need to do is declare yourself bankrupt, and we'll support you. If the book comes back to us, what we'll say is we've got a £2 trillion debt. We're not going to be able to pay it. So at least if you declare yourself bankrupt as a council, you won't have to pay your debtors the money you owe, and then we can re-establish the council under some other circumstances. And that's exactly what they've done. It is it's wrong, absolutely wrong. Central government should have came in and backed Birmingham City Council. Who are Birmingham City Council? I mean, you might be in Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, just wondering who are Birmingham City Council. Well, let me tell you this: they are the second largest city in the entire Europe. Yep, that's who Birmingham City Council are. And we've had several other councils follow suit in committing going into bankruptcy. So, each person really, if the burden was put back on them in this country, in order to pay the £2 trillion off in the United Kingdom, would have to pay £33,000 each. And that's if we have 60 million people paying 33,000, we could raise the 2 trillion. I don't think anyone's going to be giving the government freely 33,000, and if there was, there wouldn't be in the numbers that we need, because that is a number that requires every one of the residents of the United Kingdom to pay 33,000. You and me know that's never going to happen. And also, those of you that know that when a country is insolvent, it means it's incapable of paying its debts, which means it is just a legal case away from bankruptcy. Now, put it off as long as you want. It's going to happen. Okay, let's just, without going into many details, let's just look at the United States debt. 34 trillion. Their GDP is 22.99 trillion, which means they're in a worse state than the United Kingdom. And even more so when it comes down to, if we place the burden of debt on each individual, which is at 300 million people, that would be $113,000 each. Yep. Nearly 3 times the amount it is for us here in the UK. So they're 3 times worse off than what we are right now with regards to their national debts. They are, just like we are, insolvent, and just a trip to the law courts to be declared bankrupts. This is what you get. This is exactly what we get when we allow corrupt politicians to run things. And obviously, we can see that the politicians in America are 3 times more corrupt than they are in the UK. But nevertheless, the UK have driven us up to a point where, our GDP is not even as more as the debt that we've got. And we could not, as a country, just say, okay, it's 1 year's GDP, pay the lot off to clear the debt. We couldn't do it, because that would lead to tens of thousands of people dying that depend on the state. Remember I said £700 billion is paid out in benefits alone. Another £200 billion is paid out in pensions. Another £150 billion is paid out in the NHS here in Britain. So these big numbers. For those of you who can't comprehend how much these numbers mean, let's just do some simple things here. Let's understand what a billion is. It's 1,000 millions. And a trillion is 1,000 billions. These are huge numbers. Huge numbers. You wouldn't You wouldn't comprehend if I told you how much space you would need, how many football fields you'd need at a certain height to fill warehouses full of cash, you know, when you talk about 1 trillion, because that's the size of the storage space you'd need. We wouldn't be talking one football field, we'd be talking a few, trust me. So, gives you an outlook on just a few things of what's happening. You know, you've got your Earth Alpha at a glance. Some of the anomalies, I think, are more important than the latter two things. But let's face it, the latter two things we talked about, you know, the farmers protesting in Europe and the UK, US debt, just for examples, because we know all the other countries are in debt. But the point is this, you know, it gives you an idea. And yes, the second two things affect us more personally than the first, directly. So guys, link down there if you want to help support what we do on the channel. I really hope that we've encouraged a few people, you know, we've given some information and, you know, at least food for thought. So the link is there if you want to help support us. Would be amazing, you know, would be a turnaround, would be nice to see a turnaround. And also what I usually do, you know, you take care of your loved ones. As always, bye for now.